right. Good morning. As a reminder, I need your screens closed, please. Please and thank you. Unfortunately, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Beautiful. So today we are solving equations by taking square roots. We're going to be able to solve second degree equations, which means a second degree equation means that there's an x being squared in there. That's called a second degree equation. Everything else, what we just did in Bowork, that was just a plain old letter, just a plain old x. So today we're learning how to do second degree equations because it's just one extra thing, which is kind of easy, by taking square roots. So we are solving equations by taking square roots. And just like we've been doing, we use inverse operations. And right now, I'm going to give you a new inverse operation. When a variable is squared, like x being squared, you can square root both sides to get the variable by itself. So if you have something squared, then the inverse operation is a square root. So we can cancel out the squared by taking a square root. Turns out that the square root of x being squared, the square root and the square undo one another. They cancel each other out, and it just gives us a plain old x on there, which is kind of nice. So we do have to be a little bit careful. These equations can have more than one solution. So just like we've been doing, we are going to figure out where the variable is. We're going to isolate the variable. In this case, we're going to isolate the x squared by using inverse operations. Just like we have been doing, we're going to do adding or subtracting, and then we're going to do some dividing or multiplying. And then we're going to take a square root of both sides. And when we do that, we want to remember, don't forget the plus or minus. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. Will you write that in there? Don't forget plus or minus. You only do this when we take a square root, and I'll talk about why in just a minute. And then, of course, you can check your answers, which is quite cool. Again, you can always take your value and plug it back into the original and see what you get. So just to get started here, we got some really easy ones. You want to solve each equation and check your solution. When I look at this equation, there's a couple ways you can think about it. This one's quite easy. But you can say, hey, what number, because we don't know what x is. So what number squared gives you 36? 6. Hey, you know that. 6 squared gives you 36. That is a true thing, but that is not the only solution. There's another number that if you square it is also going to give you 36. -6. Yeah, -6 quantity squared. That would be -6 times -6 also gives me a positive 36 answer. So it turns out when we have a squaring equation, like something being squared, there's going to be 2 answers. All right, and that's exactly what the power tells us, that there's potentially 2 values that work for x. Okay, so how do we do this when it's more than one step? The x squared is by itself, and so what we want to do to cancel out the x squared, we're going to take the square root of both sides. And when we do that, we're going to put on a plus or minus in front of that radical. The square root and the square cancel out, and so we get just a plain old x. And then we have plus or minus the square root of 36. And what is the square root of 36, you guys? 6, yeah. And do you have a calculator? Yeah. And you can plug that into your calculator to double check, okay? So there are 2 answers. There's a positive 6 answer and there's a negative 6 answer. And that's what plus or minus means. It means that there's a 6 and there's a negative 6. 2 solutions. Of course, we knew that from the beginning because you guys are super smart. So let's look at number 4 here. I want to get the power. How do I cancel out the power of 2? Square root. We're going to square root both sides. Don't forget the plus or minus. And, ladies and gentlemen, the square root and the square cancel each other out, leaving a k. And what is the square root of 400? 20. Good. And there's a plus or minus in front. The square root of 400 is 20. So what are our 2 answers? Positive 20 and negative 20. 20 and 20. All right. All right, those are pretty easy. Let's do some harder ones. Let's look at number 7. Our job is to get the thing being squared, the variable by itself. What do we need to get rid of? That minus 10 there. I'm going to draw my wall. And then how am I going to get rid of that? Subtract 10. Add 10. Yeah, we're going to add 10 on both sides. Negative 10 and positive 10 make a 0. So I have x squared equals, what's 39 plus 10? 49. And then, how do I get rid of this power? Square root. Square root. Both sides. Don't forget a plus or minus because there's 2 possibilities here. The square root and the square cancel out and we get x equals plus or minus. What is the square root of 49? 7. Very good. And again, this is something you can put in your calculator. The square root button is on your calculator. It's pretty easy. And again, how many answers are there? 2. Yes, Mason. Can you hold just a couple minutes? Yeah, that would be good. All right, let's turn the page. Number 9. This is 192 equals 3 times w squared. How do we get the w squared by itself? Divide by 3. Very good. We're going to divide both sides by 3. Let's see. 3 goes into 19 6 times, so that leaves the remainder of 1, and then 3 goes into 4. That's 64. How about that? All right, so I get 64 equals w squared. How do I get rid of my power of 2? Square root. Good. And when you take a square root, what do you need to remember? Negative or positive. Plus or minus. Don't forget to attach your plus or minus. Now, the square root and the square cancel out, so the w is all by itself. And then we have plus or minus. What is the square root of 64? 8. Very good. 8 times 8 is 64. We just want one of those roots. Good. So plus or minus 8, we get a positive 8 and a negative 8 for our answers. You good so far? It's pretty easy. Pretty easy so far? Good, good, good. All right. Let's see. On number 10, this says k squared divided by negative 5 equals negative 20. What are we going to do here? Times by negative 5. Very good. To get rid of divide by 5, a negative 5, we're going to times both sides by negative 5. So times by negative 5 and divide by negative 5 undo one another. That leaves me with k squared equals, what do we get on the right-hand side? 100. Very good. How do we get rid of our power? Square root. Square root, don't forget. Plus or minus. Thank you. Very good. The square root and the square cancel each other out, leaving a k and a plus or minus. What is the square root of 100? 10. Very good, because 10 times 10 is 100. We just want one of those roots. Super. Do you have questions so far? All right, let's go down to the harder ones like 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then I have 2 really hard ones for you. Well, they're not really hard. They're actually pretty easy. All right, number 17. I'm going to draw a little wall here. We want to get that a squared all alone. What do we need to get rid of first? Yeah, that minus 37. How are we going to get rid of that? Add 37 on both sides. Good. Negative and positive 37 make a 0. And I'm left with negative 4a squared equals? Ooh. Yeah, who wins here? Positives or negatives? Negatives by how many? 100. And then this is negative 4 times a squared. How are we going to get a squared by itself? Divide both sides by negative 4. Very good. And let's see. That times by negative 4 and divide by negative 4 cancel out, leaving me with a squared equals, what is negative 100 divided by negative 4? Positive 25. Very good. And then we can? How do we get the power away? Square root both sides. Good. Don't forget the plus or minus. So the square root cancels out, leaving a all alone. And we get plus or minus. What is the square root of 25? 5. 5 times 5 is 25, and we just want one of those. Super. Questions so far? Are you good so far? Is this okay? All right, let's do number 19. What's missing on number 19? A 1, yeah. There's a little 1. You might want to put that little 1 in there between the negative and the variable. That should be a little bit helpful. Now, this is a positive 18 minus 1x squared equals negative 151. What do we need to do first? Whoops. Subtract the 18. I'm going to draw my little wall. I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides. Positive 18 and negative 18 is 0, so they go away. I'm left with negative 1x squared equals, now I have a whole lot of negatives here. How many negatives in all? Negative 169. Very good. And this is negative 1 times x squared. How do we get the x squared by itself? Divide. Divide both sides by negative 1. So times by negative 1 and divide by negative 1. Cancels out, leaving x squared equals, what's negative divided by negative? Positive 169. And then how do we get rid of the power? Square root. And what do we need to remember? Don't forget, plus or minus. Very good. So the root and the power cancel each other out, leaving x equals plus or minus, what is the square root of 169? 13. Very good. Plus or minus 13. Very good. All right. Do you have any questions so far? Good? Okay, last one then. Last one. This is what I would call a multi-set. We're going to have to squeeze it in on the side here because you're going to see some like this on Delta Math. So 4 parentheses x squared minus 3 plus 6 equals 10. So this one's a bigger kind of problem. You're going to see one like this on Delta Math today, so I wanted you to know how to do it. There's an x squared buried in there, but it's trapped inside of parentheses. What do you suppose we need to do? Yeah, we gotta distribute, it turns out, which was the last unit. We need to distribute that 4 so those parentheses go away. So what is 4 times x squared? It is just 4x squared. So nice. They just stick together. Very easy. Okay. And then we want to do 4 times negative 3. What is 4 times negative 3? Negative 12. And then I have this positive 6 equals 10. I'm just going to bring everything along for the ride here. What do you suppose we should do now? Can we do any cleanup? Can we maybe simplify a little bit? Right here I have a negative 12 and a positive 6. Can I put those together and clean them up a little bit? Yeah, what is a negative 12 and a positive 6? Negative 6. Yeah, that just cleans up to be, whoops, a negative 6. So I am cleaning up a little bit. I'm going to bring down my 4x squared, and then I've got my negative 6 equals 10. And now, so there's two steps we had to do. We had to distribute, and we had to combine our little like terms, which is also what we did last unit. So it just all builds, ladies and gentlemen, all builds together. All right, so now we can get rid of things. So what should we do first now? Add the 6 on both sides of our wall. Negative 6 and positive 6 is 0. I have a 4x squared equals, what's 10 plus 6? 16, good. And then what should we do? Divide. Yeah, this is 4 times the x squared, so we're going to get rid of that by dividing by 4. So those 4's go away, leaving the x squared equals, what is 16 divided by 4? 4, good. Now what do we do? Square root. Both sides, don't forget the plus or minus, and the square and the square root cancel out. So we get plus or minus, what's the square root of 4? 2, and there are our two answers, positive 2 and negative 2. Give me a thumbs up. Do you think you're going to do okay here? Sort of a wait and see sort of situation, but hopefully you wrote that down because that'll be real useful for you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have a Delta Math